necessary evolution is to recover our power of creation.
So do you think that's what's coming up in the jump, is that we're actually going to be coherent and cohesive?
Well, the net result, it has to be coherent. The jump that's immediately in front of us is, you remember there was that kid thing, which is probably still out there, called Etch-a-Sketch.
Yes.
Like a little
Yep.
television window, and you move the dials and you create an image, and then all of a sudden you shake the image and the whole thing is gone,
right.
and then you can make a new image again.
Right.
We are in an Etch-a-Sketch moment here. and what's happening, and it's very important, Veronica, people understand this, because if you look at the world and you see all the crises, you can be overwhelmed. You could sit there and think, oh my God, this thing's so out of control.
Like, think of the money thing that's gone back into the similar hands to what it was before. That's the sort of thing people are concerned about.
Absolutely, because what's really necessary and why all these crises show up at the same time is not an accident. It's not just a coincidence. Is that every crisis that's facing us, from the economic to the government to the healthcare crisis to the global food crisis, and I go on and on,
Mm-hmm.
all of them are reflecting one big thing that science has recognized, and that is this, that because of the way we have been living on this planet and treating nature and treating ourselves, we are actually destroying the environment and threatening our own extinction at this moment. In fact, science has recognized that we're not flirting with a mass extinction. We're actually deep into it. 5 previous mass extinctions essentially wiped out life on the planet and then started all over again from whatever was left over, the pieces. And the 5 previous ones, science has attributed to things like comets or asteroids hitting the planet and throwing the environment into upheaval and wiping out life. And here's the interesting one. The 6th mass extinction, the one that we're in, science has also recognized that the principal cause is human behavior.
Huh.
And so the relevance says, then what we are doing and the way we are living and carelessly, ignoring the environment, ignoring the relationship of community and cooperation as a drive force, we have thrown organisms are dropping out quickly and threatening our own extinction. And then you say, well, how are we going to recover? And the answer is simple. And it's actually, I'll give a quote from Albert Einstein, which I really like, and the quote is, you cannot solve the problems with the same thinking that created them.
That's right.
And what that means is, I look at every institution, from academia to healthcare to government to the economy and everything in between, every institution that's here, it was developed to support the belief systems that we're living by.
Right.
And the issue is, well, yeah, but those are the institutions whose way of life is causing us to go extinct. And basically, it says, so you want to survive? Well, then we have to think differently, and we cannot use these institutions anymore because they are the cause of the problem. So when you say, well, what does that mean? I say, the Etch-a-Sketch shake is that the institutions crash. Now, if you're part of the world and you're holding on to the institutions as this is life, well, then I'm sorry, this is a really scary time, because those institutions are not going to exist. And the reason is very important, because they're responsible for our own extinction. So basically it says we must reorganize the way we live, communicate, work with each other, work with the planet, and have our relationships with the rest of the world, because we're one giant organism. We're all cells in this body. And we have to start to recognize our coherence and coming together to support the whole.
And there's got to be a reverence for our individual, there's going to be a reverence for our life, which I think a lot of us don't have unless we've got money, status, blah, 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 I think.
Well, that's the unfortunate part of that's part of the thinking of the world that we live in. See, we live in a world based on what's called materialism, scientific materialism. The previous version of civilization, which ended about 1860 when Charles Darwin came in, the previous version was a civilization run by the church. And the church was preoccupied and focused on spirituality and visible stuff, okay? And in fact, they used to think the world, the physical planet, don't get involved with it because it will keep you from going to that invisible spiritual realm up in the sky. So the physical world was shunned. Opus Dei people would beat themselves till they bled because they didn't want, if you felt good, that meant you might be attracted to staying here on the planet. So, it was that kind of belief system. So we believed in a more spiritual world. And when Darwin came in, that civilization ended. The church was no. You had an issue with your health, you go to the priest. After when you have an issue with your health, you go to the doctor. Because now we look at this biology as a machine. It's biochemicals and genes, and it was just by genetic crapshoot. That's how we got here. It was just shooting the dice, and look how we got here by accident. That's our belief system. All of that is wrong. And it really
but here's another thing that I got from your book. I was really paying attention to the fact that when the interests, or the political interests or the financial interests, didn't like a discovery, then the discovery was squashed or the discovery was moved aside. I think it was talking about Lamarck.
Oh, yeah.
And I went, isn't that like today? Yeah, exactly.
It happened today. Actually, a couple of days ago was a wonderful article about the swine flu, and this epidemiologist, a very, very real truth for the fact that, there's actually a far fewer number of real swine flu cases than anybody is saying, and they wanted to put it into a journal. The editors of the journal said, no, we don't believe it. That was it was like they looked at the statistics and it's just like, no, we just don't believe it. And this is a real person doing real work. They didn't want to see it because they already have a vision of this whole thing about this big epidemic and all that. So this paper comes out. It's a real scientific paper and challenges a statement. And the editors of the journal decide personally not to print it because personally they didn't believe it. They just couldn't see it as being real, so they ignored it.
Well, and when I was in radio years ago, just for a short period of time, but I was shocked to find out that the news that's on the air was what they chose as being marketable, but not necessarily what was actually going on out there.
Oh, God, no, it is so unfortunate.
That was a bit iconoclastic for me, but it's the same subject, isn't it?
Exactly. You see, here's interesting point. People are a little edgy today everywhere.
A little,
I'm tell you why. There's a reason. It's called the biological imperative. The biological imperative is this. Every living organism, from bacteria to humans, has an innate built-in drive to survive. Biologists don't know where or how it's manifest, but you can observe it. That means if you try to kill a bacterium, it will not sit there and let you try and kill it. It will do everything it can to stay alive. It will do every maneuver possible. And so what it basically says is every organism on this planet has a sense of a potential threat to their survival. And upon having that threat, their biology will amp up and start to get them in a protective state so they're ready to do something about it. So we're amping up because everyone's feeling, okay, hey, survival is questionable at this point and everything's going on. Well, it works the same thing for corporations, which are living entities in a sense. And what's the relevance? Well, the big corporations like the pharmaceutical companies especially, and now the health insurance people are beginning to realize that their days are probably numbered right now. And they're becoming more aggressive as the end is, visible on the horizon, more aggressive to keep hold of what they've been doing. It's sort of like the dinosaurs. Yes, they were coming to an end, but that didn't make them happy campers. That just irritated them even more. And we're getting this push now from the institutions that want to keep us where we've been. Well, in the process, people are letting go of these beliefs that have held them in like captive in a sense. It's interesting because if people have seen this movie, which most people have, called The Matrix.
Right.
We are truly exactly in the Matrix.
Yay!
And it's time to wake up. And both the biology of belief and spontaneous evolution both emphasize a very important fact that when we were children, before we were 6, we were at a programmable stage of development where the nervous system is in a hypnagogic trance. And the significance is you can't be conscious, a child can't be conscious unless it has data to be conscious about. I mean, think about a baby's just born and you say, oh, you're just born, tell me something. And the baby, if it could say something, would say, well, I don't know what to say, I just got here, I don't know anything. And so a baby cannot be conscious until it gets data. So we now know the first 6 years, the brain operates at a lower EEG frequency, mainly theta, which is a hypnagogic trance. So you can download how to be on this planet, how a family operates, who's the father and mother, what are their roles, how do they behave, what are they, what's their lifestyle. We download all that, and we learn from the culture and the community. So basically, it says the fundamental beliefs we get from life are not something that we consciously were creating or aware of. It was just downloaded into us. Okay. Well, and so then I come up with a statement that some people out in the audience might be quite aware of. I say, for over 1,000 years, the Jesuits were very proud of a fact. They would say, you show me the child and I will give you the man. Or another thing they would say is, give me a child until it's 6 and it will belong to the church for the rest of its life. What they were